Hey, it's Irreverent Aegis here, and in this video I'm going to walk you through how to tank March of Sacrifice's hard mode. In my opinion, the theme for tanking this hard mode is sustain. If you can sustain your resources throughout this fight, it's actually fairly straightforward and pretty easy. There aren't a lot of big attacks to deal with, so as long as you can maintain your resources, especially during those hunt phases, you'll do fine. I'm going to feature a pretty uncommon build here that probably no one uses, but I am using Overwhelming for this fight. As a Sork, it's especially effective because I deal more shock damage as a Sork, but when I deal damage with a class ability, I do shock damage around me, and I restore 15% of that damage done as Magicka, so that helps with sustain. I'm wearing Earthgore here, not because I have to, but because I didn't feel like changing it out. And then, as my body set, I am wearing Histbark. While you are blocking, you gain Major Evasion. So that works really well. There is one big attack that you need to worry about from the werewolf, and it's the Scream, and that really helps reduce that damage from the Scream. As far as your bar setup, it doesn't really matter what class of tank you are on. A little bit of damage mitigation helps for the few big attacks, but more importantly, having a skill that restores stamina is huge. So I use Dark Deal on the Sork because that allows me to trade Magicka for stamina and health, which is huge throughout this fight. My back bar, there's nothing special there. You got my range taunt, I have Bound Aegis again, I do have a crowd control, and then I put out an Overflowing Altar for my team, and why not, I have the Werewolf on my bar as well to increase my stamina recovery while I'm running around. But again, no matter what class you are on, the most important part is to be able to sustain throughout this fight, so set up your bar accordingly. As we start the fight, we're going to taunt and turn Balorg away from the group as he does several AoE attacks that can wipe members of your group if you don't turn him away. That heavy attack we just saw, pretty standard, just block or roll dodge it. He will ground slam and put poison on the land. He alternates between poison on the land and lightning in the water. However, if you push him to 80% quickly, he won't put the lightning in the water. Hunt phase is different for several reasons for hard mode, and this is where most groups wipe. You get these hunt phases at 80%, 60%, 40%, and 20%, and after a certain amount of time, after 20%. Differences are you have 4 werewolves to deal with instead of 1. If you have a little circle under your feet, it means at least one of the werewolves is targeting you. Second, you do have the poison on the land and lightning in the water mechanic. It always starts with poison on the land. So as you direct your group, tell them as soon as hunt phase starts, get off the land. As soon as that ends, tell them to get on the land, as he'll put lightning in the water. There are 4 traps that you need to take him to. Again, if you have the circle under your feet, one of them is following you, so be sure to scan around the room to see the little glow. That's where you need to take your tune. Another aspect of this hunt phase is there are also Stranglers. The Stranglers are really annoying. They're going to slow you down, they're going to stun you, they're going to pull you back. Everything that Stranglers do. The ESO developers love Stranglers. They just put them everywhere in this game and in like half the hard modes. Super exciting stuff. But anyway, you will be dealing with getting slowed down quite a bit here, and you'll use a lot of stamina roll dodging and breaking free. So again, having some kind of stamina sustain is great. Again, on my Sork, Dark Deal is amazing as I activate it constantly while I'm running around here. As the tank, you'll want to direct your group to do several things throughout this hard mode as well. The first is that throughout this hunt phase, you'll want the 2 DPS and the healer to stick together. There's a lot of damage that goes around, whether it's from poison, whether it's from Balorg, Stranglers, lightning, whatever. The healer should be with the rest of them, that way they can get the heals they need, because there is a lot of damage over time here. As the tank, if you can stick with them, awesome. If not, that's okay as long as you can sustain on your own. Another thing you'll want your group to do is make sure they handle the Stranglers. Make sure they don't build up throughout the fight. The more Stranglers there are, the harder this gets during hunt phase. Sometimes we run it where one of the DPS goes off and burns down Stranglers and the other stays the boss. Other times, if we're near a Strangler, they'll just hit him while we're there. Let's talk about some priority attacks that you need to be aware of from the boss. The first is that Scream that we just saw. You will definitely need to block through that, and most likely have the healer near you or activate a self-heal. Extra damage mitigation on your bar helps, which is why I like to run the Sork tank, as Bound Aegis is fantastic for absorbing that damage, and it's another reason why I run that Histbark set, for that reduced 25% AoE damage. Another priority attack is the Fire Charge. This must be roll dodged. If the initial hit doesn't hit you, the flame wall that is left behind will burn you and you will die. Another attack that doesn't affect you so much, but will wipe your DPS, is the ground slam where he says, "Feel my flames or I'll burn you to a crisp." Once you hear that audio cue, please tell your group to roll dodge. If they don't roll dodge, they'll get a nasty fire dot on them for 4 seconds that either needs to be healed through, or the person will likely die. The problem with the attack during hunt phase is that there are 4 werewolves, and all 4 of them can do it. And there's not always one of those audio cues. Sometimes it's silent. So sometimes your group will just have to eat that fire dot, which is why it's so important for the DPS to run around with the healer throughout that phase. As we come out of hunt phase, I want to remind you again that the first thing that happens is you will get poison on the land. It doesn't matter if you just had poison on the land during hunt phase. When you go into or come out of a hunt phase, it will always be poison on the land first, followed by lightning in the water. Here I kind of put my team in a bad spot with fire and poison on the land, and then we had a scream, but they did a good job of roll dodging away. During that lightning phase, they need to keep moving. You should keep moving as well, that way you don't take that lightning damage. And again, once the lightning ends, we're going to get poison on the land, so it's your job as the tank to let your group know, get off the land or get on the land, depending on what part you're on. Here we're about to enter another hunt phase. So again, I remind you, stay off the land. Make sure as the tank you tell your group to do the same thing. If the trap just happens to be on the land, as the tank you may be able to survive being on the land for a second or two, but get off it as soon as possible because the poison will kill you as well. One thing we have yet to talk about during the hunt phase is there will be a lot of dire wolves running around during the hunt phase that chase you around and nip at you and do a lot of damage, especially to your DPS. If you get a good trap, that means the trap isn't in the water during lightning or isn't on the land during poison. It's good for you to drop your crowd control abilities. If you have a Necro in the group, the Agony Totem, perfect. Otherwise, restraining the wolves is fine. Drop it right on the trap, restrain all those wolves as they run up to you, and burn them down. We usually save our ultimates for killing the dire wolves, actually, because the boss doesn't really take a lot to push him to each 20% phase. So it's actually better to kill the dire wolves with your ultimates than it is to ulti-dump Balorg. The only exception my groups usually take to that is once you reach that 20% hunt phase. We like to save our ultimates for when the 20% hunt phase ends, because we like to ulti-dump the boss from 20% to 0% as quickly as possible. That way we can avoid extra mechanics or extra hunt phases from burning him too slowly once you reach 20%. Now I want to go over the rules you should follow when resurrecting a dead teammate. If it's during hunt phase, the most important thing is you do not have a circle underneath your feet. That means you are free to get a resurrection because there is no shade following you. Second rule during hunt phase is obviously know whether it's poison on the land or lightning in the water and how close you are to getting to another one of those phases. So the best time to get a resurrection is, again, wait for the circle to not be on you, meaning you have killed your Balorg shade. And then as soon as a lightning phase ends, or as soon as the poison phase ends, that's the best time to get a res. If it's not during hunt phase, just make sure there are no stranglers near you, and again, you know whether it's poison coming or lightning coming. That way you can get the res accordingly. The rules for getting up after a resurrection are pretty much the same thing. Just know what phase you are on. Again, know the poison, know the lightning. They alternate. It always starts with poison. Here we're going to be on our last hunt phase. The nice thing about it is that we burned Balorg down to 12%. It's not a hard lock at 20. He'll finish whatever mechanic he's doing at 20, so you actually have some extra time to burn Balorg down to a lower percentage, which is really nice because the lower percentage he's at, the less you need to do to execute him, meaning the less likely it is that you'll run out of time and he'll enter another hunt phase. As we finish up this last hunt phase, let's review your job as a tank throughout this hard mode. First and foremost, to make sure you are set up for sustain, because that is the biggest issue here that you have as the tank. Second, when you are not in a hunt phase, make sure you face Balorg away from the group so you don't accidentally kill someone in your group. Third, always remind your group whether it's going to be poison on the land or lightning in the water, and make sure they act appropriately and you're giving them the proper cues. Next, make sure you call out the roll dodge on the Feel My Flames. You are in best position to see that as the tank, as you'll be facing the boss. During hunt phase, obviously it's a little harder, so listen for that audio cue. Next, know your priority attacks and what to do with them. You'll need to block and likely heal through the Scream. You'll need to roll dodge away from the Fire Charge, and you'll need to block or roll dodge the Heavy Attack. Those are the main attacks that you need to worry about. Alright, we just finished the final hunt phase, and the most important thing I can tell you here is stay off the land. Do your ulti dump, but do it from the water, as if you're on the land, you're going to wipe your group because everyone got a little too excited that this was going to be over. But that's it. Enjoy your clear.